Have you ever heard of the concept of malicious compliance?
No.
I can kind of think. No,
I can't think of what that might
Okay,
be.
so-
Get what
Go
they're
for it.
going with it. But
Okay,
Yeah.
so malicious compliance, for example, when a bureaucracy it continues to demand things from you, for example, and I'm being too vague with this example, but essentially you snow their office with paperwork that now they have to sort through, right?
Mhm.
They demand a report on this or that, and you could make it 4 pages, but instead you make it 40, knowing that someone at their office has to read through it.
Yeah.
Or
okay.
you're at work and your boss sets a bunch of retarded rules for you that stop you from doing a good job. And a good worker or a good engineer will find ways around the rules. An engineer who's sick of the bullshit will comply with each of the rules to the letter, and when the product's a failure, be like, I complied tit for tat with everything you told me to do. So I'm thinking of applying the concept of malicious compliance to the rules that the dildo rules that progressives want to put on society. So whenever we see, say, racial inequality, we need to hammer the shit out of the people in charge. Like, we need to be suing Democrat-run school districts. We need to be bringing in far left liberal public school administrators before the EEOC for discrimination lawsuits. We have to be legally and excoriating them in the press, kicking them in the balls, hoisting them on their own petard, taking that. But we're not doing that right now, right? We're not like if a Republican president were truly malicious, for example, one thing he would go do is he would go through every predominantly Jewish law firm and sue them for discrimination. He would have them. He would have every.
It would be great, but it's just that's just not how.
oh man,
that
would be Richard Nixon.
Right?
That's the only one I could think doing that.
You could do it. You absolutely could. They don't do it because, Republicans don't believe in this EEOC crap. So Republicans don't bring EEOC suits. It's only something Democrats do.
But they don't think in terms of the lines that you're thinking, like use liberalism against itself.
They don't hate the left enough. That's their problem.
Exactly. They think the left is like a nuisance when really it's a vile thing that needs to be just dismantled.
Physically removed, so to speak.
Yeah, it needs to be physically removed.
So to speak.
If Richard Nixon were alive today, and he were the next president, he's the sort of guy who would have the New York Times sued by the EEOC for having too many white editorialists, staffers, journalists. I mean, you could destroy the institutions of the left because they don't follow their own diversity rules.
Yeah, he is the only one I could think that could that. It's plausible he could do it. Like Ronald Reagan probably believed fully in like the whole, blacks are good boys.
Well, yeah, I mean
Nixon would actually do it.
No, it's not even that. It's that most Republicans see institutions like the EEOC and EPA and whatever
as things to be avoided. To be completely avoided. So they don't think along the lines of, oh, let's get into the tort system and go crazy suing people. They think like that shit's ridiculous. We don't use that. We don't do that. So even exactly. That's for liberals. Even to use it in ways that would benefit us is kind of out of the question. And I can see what you're saying. Like it would be really hilarious if that could like take root in the conservative movement to be like start suing. I mean, Jewish law firm, that's fucking hilarious. Sue them.
Right.
That's right.
Actually, one of the good things Bush did that doesn't get a lot of attention is he basically suppressed the EPA for about 8 years. They didn't bring a lot of lawsuits, and they issued very few new regulations. He put them in a chokehold. Now, a malicious president would take the EPA, and he would start finding ways to find, environmental regulation violations at things like farmers markets, right? At organic farms, right? He would find all this Swipple liberal bullshit and try to kill them with the EPA. That's malicious compliance. And I think with the EEOC, like the EEOC,
that's the name
really
of this episode,
right? The EEOC
that's a great one, yeah.
The EEOC could be wielded as a tactical weapon against the left because their businesses don't. Yeah. Their businesses don't have black CEOs, just like 99% of businesses.
Well, isn't there? It wasn't. I can't remember what state. Maybe it was California, where they were looking for. giving bids to black-run businesses, even if they weren't the best bids given on a project. I mean, I guess you could go that route with those. I would have to look into the specifics of that. See, this is what I do. I read these things and they trigger me, and it's through the years, but I never remember the specifics of them. Well, so when you say something like that, like I can think of a context where that would work. And
well, here's what I mean. Kind of what the EEOC does is they go through, and especially when they're being run by more malicious Democrats, i.e., all Democrats.
Really,
they kind of go through industries that haven't been, prostrating themselves before the altar of Dildalek enough.
God.
And
Dildalek.
Yeah. They look at the racial and demographic statistics of your organization, and they kind of look for the ones that are far enough away from the means for them to bring a discrimination lawsuit against you. And that's how they goose you. It's how they up those campaign contributions. It's how they get their rent-seeking kind of sinecures for a few dindus and women. I mean, they do target specific businesses. There's a reason J.P. Morgan got hit and Goldman Sachs didn't. I mean, did you know about this bonus lawsuit?
Goldman.
Did you guys know about what I'm talking about?
Keep going.
Okay, so J.P. Morgan got sued by the EEOC because the black traders weren't making big enough bonuses.
I wonder why.
What J.P. showed in court, this was a landmark case. J.P. Morgan showed in court that they awarded bonuses strictly based on it was a flat commission. You make this much profit in your trades, you make this much bonus. It is a mathematical formula. It's not based on who you know. There is no subjective element
racist
whatsoever.
Huh. Interesting.
The opposition argued, and they won. J.P. Morgan had to pay a $2 billion lawsuit to every black, $2 billion settlement to every black trader they have. The opposition argued that awarding bonuses strictly based on performance, is racist because performance depends a lot on your social connections, and black people don't have the same social networking advantages that whites, i.e., Jews.
By that logic, when I worked at Guitar Center, the black guys who worked in drums, like whatever their commission was that month, is racist. If it was.
Only if
fucking
it's lower,
insane,
right?
Well, technically it always is, but because of white privilege, their commission would be even higher if it was higher than mine. That's fucking
yeah. Right. But Chase Bank supported the Nazis. That's why they need to they need to pay the toll.
Right, and see, Jamie Dimon during the financial crisis, he was like the only major bank CEO that wasn't entirely on board with everything the Fed wanted to do. Yeah. So this was actually a way of punishing J.P. Morgan.
Okay, there you go.
For not having played ball. So the point being they use the EEOC to punish businesses who don't play ball.
Yeah.
And I think, if you can't, at this point, we still can't have it disestablished. Right, it would still be racist to get rid of it. What you can do is so poison its reputation that then it is so hated, then you can disestablish it. Right, make the Democrats fear it. Make Democrats it.
Right. I remember George Bush did the same thing with the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. He basically defanged it, so to speak. And I'm wondering if, as whites lose their majority status, if a Republican administration somehow got back into power, they could use malicious compliance in the Civil Rights Division to, go after businesses that now are employing more non-whites, because now whites aren't a majority anymore, so they can kind of do the same thing there.
I've thought about things like that, but I don't know that that'll ever work. I'm not confident that civil rights in reverse will ever work, or white people, because white people, I think that you're already getting things where people are anticipating a non-white majority and how they'll say like white privilege doesn't depend on a majority and things like that.
I know they're gonna say that, and that's another scary thing is that because we all know that whites are still going to be the most prosperous group economically, and then it's going to get ugly because then it's going to be like, wait a minute, they're not even the majority anymore, but they're still getting all the wealth. And it's going to be like, what are we going to become the new Jews? Like, that's a little unsettling. I really think
Kevin McDonald thinks that we're going to have to start using Jewish social strategies.
So actually, your questions already kind of been answered. You can't use the EEOC against minorities. There's a lot of precedent. Basically, there's a lot of precedent essentially saying that to establish discrimination, it's got to be someone who belongs to a group of people that have had a history of being oppressed. And since white people,
prejudice
you could literally put white people aren't oppressed. So,
but even when whites are no longer the majority, now they're
white people
plurality
by definition can't be oppressed. Like you have to understand, like civil rights by definition. Is like not white people. That's just
right. I know it's
dildo,
and I know their definition is dildo.
No,
but
being oppressed
doesn't
is
it
not
depend on whites being the majority?
No. It depends on whites being better off and whites having built the country. That's what it depends on.